Good morning, friends, and welcome to our Sunday morning One Dharma Zen practice. I will hope you're having a wonderful Sunday morning in America or wherever you are joining us around the world through our live stream. As we begin our service, just wanted to say I pulled a muscle in my back this last week and I'm moving a little slow. So, yeah, I'll try to make it through this okay. It is what it is, right? So, but again, thank you for being with us today. So, as we do, we will begin um, we'll begin our liturgy by first paying homage to the Buddha. I pay homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Fully Enlightened One. I pay homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Fully Enlightened One. I pay homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Fully Enlightened One. And the three refuges. I take refuge in the Buddha. May all sentient beings understand the great way profoundly and bring forth the Bodhi mind. I take refuge in the Dharma. May all sentient beings deeply enter the Sutra treasury and have wisdom vast as the sea. I take refuge in the Sangha. May all sentient beings form together a great assembly, one and all in harmony. And now for the Bodhicitta prayer. There it is. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. And now we recite the six perfections of the Bodhisattva. As bodhisattvas, we seek to practice generosity, discipline, patience, exertion, meditation, and wisdom. We will now begin our first 15 minutes of seated silent meditation. We will now um, chant the gata on the opening of the sutras. And let me see if I can share that with you real quickly for those of you who don't know it. There it is. So it goes like this. This Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, hold and maintain it. May we completely realize the true mind of all Buddhas. Okay, so now's my chance to talk a little bit and to liven this up, I hope, a little bit. Um, Chanting is always good. We're going to do some chanting after our next meditation period. We'll chant the Heart Sutra together. As Sung San called that, together action, right? It's our way of trying to set the cosmos in order together as a unified Sangha body. So, what a wonderful thing that is. But we'll do that in a little while. First, I want to talk a little bit about basics of Buddhism, right? So, I think most people who would bother to take the time watching this would understand that the Buddha's realization under the Bodhi tree, by the Buddha I mean Shakyamuni Buddha, his realization under the Bodhi tree was to fully comprehend what he called the Four Noble Truths. And the first noble truth being there is suffering in the world. It's unavoidable, it's unmistakable, it's here. And so much of the Dharma is wrapped in that first noble truth. There's suffering, right? And then the second noble truth it was there's a cause of suffering, okay? And that cause of suffering that the Buddha explained to us that he realized under the Bodhi tree was that this clinging, this attachment to greed, hatred, delusion, those three poisons as they're called, these are the things that cause people to suffer. But then he realized that there was a way to stop suffering, that suffering can end. And his fourth noble truth was that suffering ends through the Noble Eightfold Path. And then he listed a way for us to live our lives, to focus on a life of goodness so that we can stop suffering ourselves. And in the Mahayana tradition, we want to share that with other people. We want to help them stop suffering. So this Noble Eightfold Path that the Buddha explained was right view, right intent, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right meditation, right concentration. Those things, if we, and then he spent his next rest of his lifetime, the next 40 years or so, doing nothing but expounding the wisdom behind the cessation of suffering and how we can stop suffering ourselves and how we can teach others to stop suffering. That's the beauty of the Buddha Dharma. And then with the rise of Mahayana, the great vehicle as it was called, this notion of taking on a bodhisattva ideal, that we want to share this desire to help other people stop suffering as our ultimate goal in all of our existence. How important that becomes. But as has been said throughout time by the Buddha himself in the Dhammapada, by Zen masters throughout time in our tradition of Zen, one has to understand the Dharma first in order to teach it, right? And so understand these noble truths, understand the way to stop suffering. Now, that doesn't mean we're perfect at it. Obviously not. None of us are perfect. Um, but understanding it is an important step. And when we do understand it, and in our Zen tradition, when you understand it enough that that spirit of that bodhisattva ideal comes into your heart, that you truly want to share that and help other people stop suffering, then you just want to do it. Um, and we do that, we choose to do that in many ways. And so, you know, I previously had us recite, and I do it at the beginning of every practice session that I have done for years. And that is, I've always tried to recite the six perfections, these paramitas, right? And these are the things that bring up within us this bodhisattva spirit, this bodhisattva ideal, and uh, that to help other people stop suffering, right? To help alleviate their suffering, to save them from their suffering, so to speak. And so, this being generosity and discipline, patience, exertion, meditation, and wisdom. A week or two ago, I shared with you um, in one of my Zen minutes that that in the Platform Sutra, Huineng, the sixth patriarch of Zen, explained that there is not meditation and wisdom. They are not separate. They are one and the same. And that is the idea that we have within Zen as to why we meditate, so that we can be more wise in how we see our own life, how we see other people's lives, how we recognize that we are not separate. We are all a part of the greater whole. Um, that greater whole, as Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh would teach, was that we inter-are. There is this sense of interbeing, that you do not exist without me, I do not exist without you. We all exist interconnectedly. And when we realize that, when we truly realize that, and we recognize we are not separate, but we are all part of one, it makes it easier for us to let go of some of our attachments to things, because we realize I can't be just attached to this, recognizing I'm also a part of that. Recognizing that is as much a part of what I am as this is. So the Buddha taught in the Dhammapada, and I'll paraphrase here, but you can look in the Dhammapada under verse 214 is what I'm paraphrasing. But the Buddha stated in the Dhammapada that attachment gives us anxiety, fear, and grief. That is suffering. And when we are so attached to things that we have fear, that we have grief, that we have anxiety, we are suffering. And we do not learn to overcome our suffering when we have those feelings. So how do we overcome those things? I've noticed in the Buddhist community recently, there is a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, that and grief. And I say this in the Buddhist community, I mean in the American Buddhist community. And it's been pervasive. I've seen it from all levels of practitioners. And yet, to have this fear, to have this anxiety, to have this grief is not the Buddha way. We have to learn to let go. We cannot live in the past. To paraphrase another section of the Dhammapada, under clinging, under the chapter on clinging, we have to let go of the past. We have to let go of the present, and we have to let go of the future, and just accept things as they are, emotionally, physically, and recognize there's still suffering in the world, There will always be suffering in the world. How do we then act to stop suffering in the world? We don't act to stop suffering by bringing more suffering upon ourselves. So if you're suffering, sit on it, let it go. The only way you're going to really be able to let it go is meditate on it. Let it go. Cultivate compassion. Do a metta chant. Recite the bodhicitta prayer. Find your own compassionate gatha or mantra that helps you feel better, and learn to let go of your own anxiety. Learn to let go of your own grief and fear. And when you can let go of it, you can learn to help others even more. Let go of theirs. How important that is, that we as bodhisattvas learn not to suffer ourselves so we can help others not suffer. Now, we're all attached to our own ideas, right? That's a hard thing to let go of. We're all attached to our own sense of right and wrong. We're all attached to our own sense of morality to an extent. And those things are hard to let go of. I caught myself today. So I was driving home on my motorcycle. I live here in Vietnam, and I was driving home on my motorcycle from the grocery store. And there were two motorcycles. One was like we call it it's a baguette. It's like a motorcycle truck, right? So one was a motorcycle truck with a heavy load of things in the back, and one was a motorcycle with two guys on it. Just a normal scooter. Motorcycles here in Vietnam are not like Harley Davidsons in America. They're scooters for the most part. And so this happened right in front of me. So one guy pulled across one lane of traffic to pull into the lane to go. And there was fairly heavy traffic. And of course somebody hit him, and both the motorcycles fell over. And as I passed by, I recognized that no one was hurt, and there were lots of people there who could help them. But I was attached to my ideas of right of way. I was attached to my ideas of, you don't pull out in front of somebody and just assume they're going to stop. And I was finding myself on my motorcycle wanting to lay blame. It's that guy's fault. It's that guy's fault. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. Why did he do this? Why did this one do that? And it was all in my own head, right? I am sure neither of the drivers were driving on the road that day today thinking, I'm going to whack somebody on my motorcycle. So we're both laid out on the side of the road. Of course not, right? So my attachment to my own ideas of what does it mean to drive safely, what does it mean to follow the rules of the road, it's just me deciding how is it going to affect me. Me thinking one of those guys is really wrong for pulling out in front of the other one. And yet here in Vietnam, there's the idea that people are going to stop, they're going to slow down. It's a crowded city here in Saigon. And there has to be some give and take on the road in order for traffic to work right. Now, the problem is that notion in Vietnamese traffic works very well if everyone's paying attention. But if one guy's talking to the guy behind him and, they're not paying attention to some guy on a big, say a baguette, big motorcycle truck pulling in front of them, they may not know. They may not see that somebody's going to be so brazen as to pull right out in front of them from across the street, right? And that's where my attachment to this being right and this being wrong comes from my own culture, right? So again, where am I going with this? What I'm trying to say is we all have these ideas of who's right and who's wrong. And we dwell on them because maybe it's part of our culture. Maybe it's part of our religious culture. Maybe it's part of our educational culture. Maybe We are attached to those things. Maybe we're attached to our own degree of education or our own culture that we think may be better or worse than another. However, we think my beliefs are better than their beliefs. We get attached. And what happens in attachment? It causes anxiety. It causes fear. It causes grief. And it causes suffering, whether it's our own suffering or someone else's. So, the Buddha tells us, let go of attachments. I had a great Zen master used to teach me, let go of your unhealthy attachments. If you're attached to not smoking cigarettes, then it's probably wise not to start smoking cigarettes, right? If you are attached to donating to your favorite charity, that's probably a good attachment. You know, you're helping people. So there's nothing wrong with healthy attachments in the grand scheme of things. But when we're attached to something to the point that it causes us anxiety, that it causes us fear, that it causes us grief, we're overly attached and it's not healthy. And that is not the Buddha way. So if you find yourself one of these many Americans, many American Buddhists especially, who generally tend to be very progressive in their thought patterns, if you find yourself suffering right now from fear, from anxiety, from grief, maybe now's the time to just learn, sit, let it go. Everything will be okay. Don't be overly attached. And then look for ways. How can I help someone else not suffer? I think there's a lot of ways out there. There's a lot of people who are suffering. And maybe they need a hug. Maybe they need a handout. Maybe they need the Dharma. Find a way that you can serve. The Zen master Sung San, Korean Zen master Sung San, who immigrated to America in the 70s, his constant mantra to his Zen students and later to his Zen teachers that he trained was this bodhisattva idea of how may I help you? Generosity of spirit. How may I help you? That I can help stop your suffering, alleviate some of it. When we do that, we are following the Buddha's way because he taught us there's suffering, but we can stop suffering for ourselves and for others. That's the teachings of the Buddha, and that's the best I can leave with you. Let go of some of our unhealthy attachments. Seek a way to serve others. When we do, we'll alleviate our own suffering all the more and alleviate their suffering as well. Okay, so now we'll have 15 more minutes of seated meditation, and then we'll do a little chanting afterwards. So I invite you to follow the Chukpi for our beginning and ending of the meditation, and again I will set the timer so that you know, if you're conscious of is like 15 minutes up yet or not, you can just relax and open your eyes at the very end. You'll hear me here hit the Chukpi. So anyway, that'll be easy enough for us all. Okay, so as I promised, it's time for a little together action, uh, chanting. And I guess I should apologize for those of you who may not have chanted with me before. I don't have the most beautiful voice in the world, um, but it comes from the heart. I do have a Dharma friend who is a Sri Lankan monk in Hesperia, California, who has the most beautiful male chanting voice you may ever hear in your life. And he chants regularly every night on Facebook Live. So if you look up Bhante Chantaratana or look up Hesperia, no, it's Paramita Buddhist Meditation Center in Hesperia, California. Um, if you want to hear someone really chant beautifully, uh, he's your guy. So anyway, so as they do in Dharma centers around the world, um, and we do too, we will chant the Heart Sutra in English. Uh, so yeah, I think maybe not everyone knows the Heart Sutra, so I'll share this as well. Um, and um, I hope if you do know it, you'll chant along at least in your head. And yeah, it's a beautiful lesson on emptiness. So let's see if we can make this work. Make sure I have my sound turned on. You won't hear the you won't be able to hear the moktak going at all if I'm not careful. Let me stop this real quick. Sorry, folks. Okay, original sound for musicians is on. That's what I wanted. Okay, uh, so here we go. The Maham Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva when practicing deeply the Prajna Paramita perceives that all five skandhas are empty and is safe from all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Which is form is emptiness, that which is emptiness, form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They do not appear or disappear, are not tainted or pure, do not increase or decrease. Therefore, in emptiness, no form, no feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realm of eyes, and so forth until no realm of mind consciousness, no ignorance, and also no extinction of it. and so forth until no old age and death, and also no extinction of them, no suffering, no origination, no stopping, no path, no cognition, also no attainment, with nothing to attain. The bodhisattva depends on prajna paramita, and the mind is no hindrance. Without any hindrance, no fears exist. Far apart from every perverted view, one dwells in nirvana. In the three worlds, all Buddhas depend on prajna paramita and attain anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore know that prajna paramita is the great transcendent mantra, is the great pride mantra, is the utmost mantra, is the supreme mantra, which is able to relieve all suffering and is true, not false. So proclaim the prajna paramita mantra. Proclaim the mantra which says Gatte gatte para gatte para samgatte bodhi swaha. Gatte gatte para gatte para samgatte bodhi swaha. Gatte gatte para gatte para samgatte bodhi swaha. Okay. Now we will do our dedication of merit. I think that's what's next, yeah. So, get my bell away from my monk tot. All sentient beings are one seamless body and pass quickly from birth to death. We remember those who cared for us and are gone, those who are ill, those who are at war, who are hungry, and who are in pain. May they heal and have peace. We especially dedicate our service to Elaine, Ngaple, Sang, all beings in the 10 directions, subject to the greed, hatred, and delusions of themselves and others. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Maha Prajna Paramita. And now, the 4 great vows. Again, in Zen centers around the world, the 4 great vows are recited almost every day at every session. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. Life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly by, and opportunities to awaken are easily lost. Strive to realize your true nature. Do not squander your time by night or day. Thank you for joining me tonight, folks, this morning in America, and I hope you'll join with us again. May you all be well and happy.